Hello, welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary, Astro Mary. My name's Mary English and I'm a professional astrologer working in private practice in the UK. And as I promised last week, this week we are going to be learning about past lives. Now, I wouldn't be able to tell from your chart whether or not you have had a past life yourself. What I'm going to be discussing in this lesson is past lives you might have had with somebody else. And I will be putting a link on to my podcast page that is written by a lady called Judy Hall, and she's written some fantastic books about past lives. She's Sagittarius. And I'll be putting the link, Patterns of the Past, How Astrology Can Help You Understand Your Former Lives. So in that document, which I'll put the link for, in that particular document she talks about what you might have got up to in a previous life, depending on what sign of the zodiac you are. So that's a useful piece of information. But if you want further information, and we're talking about past lives now that you would have had with other people, I recommend her book Hands Across Time, The Soulmate Enigma, because in there she discusses in much more detail about the past lives that you might have had with a romantic partner. Now, if you want information about family dynamics, because I'm going to be talking about that today as well, I recommend another book which is equally as fabulous, and it's called The Astrology of Family Dynamics, and it's by a lady called Erin Sullivan. And she's a fabulous American astrologer. Judy Hall is UK and Erin Sullivan is USA astrologer, and they're both, I deeply respect both of them. They're fab astrologers. So both those books, get them. Hands Across Time is now out of print, so you'll have to get a used copy. But I think you can still get The Astrology of Family Dynamics by Erin Sullivan. I'm sure that's still been reprinted. So what is a past life? Oh my goodness, I'm going to be here forever. A past life is something that you might have experienced prior to your birth in this lifetime. So there you are, you were born in 1970, maybe you had a previous life and you were born in 1920. Who knows? The only way to find out what your past lives have been is to have a past life regression. And I've been regressing people since I was 18, so that's 1978 when I learned how to do it at college. Goodness me, what a fun thing to learn. I learned it from another pupil, and he showed me this fabulous technique on how to experience past life. So I've been doing it ever since 1978, and I now use it in my hypnotherapy practice, regressing clients to previous lives and experience what might have happened and maybe resolving it or not. You might not be able to resolve what might have happened. But the astrology of past lives is even more interesting. Now, we've talked about synastry charts, so that was lesson number blah-de-blah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but a synastry chart is when you have your data, somebody else's data, you go to astro.com, you click on equal house, and you also click on synastry, which is the second choice in the extended chart selection. And a synastry chart is that person number A is in the centre of the chart, person number B is on the outside. And what you're looking for when you're looking at past lives is any planet that is in the same sign as the other person. So we're just looking at things being in the same sign. I personally don't think a past life is indicated from something that's trine or sextile or the same element or whatever. It has to be in the same sign. If it's conjuncted in the same sign, whoa, then you're onto something very strong. Now, if you were born in the same year as someone else's chart that you're comparing to, don't forget your outer planets are going to be in the same sign. So there's less of a likelihood of you having a significant past life with somebody that's born in exactly the same year as yourself. Okay, so keep that in mind. Because unless they were born the same month or a month or so apart from you, there's not much that's going to be different between your two charts. So there's less of an indicator about past lives. Now, before I did this podcast today, I checked again to remind myself of various different members of my family, because I originally had quite a lot of siblings. 2 of them have now died. There were 5 of us in the family. There are now unfortunately only 3 of us left. And I had a very close relationship with my youngest sister, Katie. And when I do a synergy chart between hers and mine, we have a lot of connections. And so I'll just sort of talk you through what those connections are. So let me just get my chart up and hers. So to get your synergy chart, go to astro.com, go to free horoscope, scroll over to the right, go to extended chart selection, make sure you've actually put the data of the person you want to compare with into astro.com, otherwise nothing's going to happen. Let me get my sister Katie, here we go, and I've got hers in my chart up, and she was born in 1967, I was born in 1960. She was born with Down syndrome, which absolutely never bothered me. It was never an issue for me. It was for my older sister. She found it quite embarrassing, I think, having a sister that wasn't the same as other people. But I found the fact that she had Down syndrome quite unique. And so we could sort of ask the question, why would that be the case? Well, in my chart, I've got Venus and Mars in the sign of Aquarius, and that particular sister has Venus in Aquarius. So obviously, I'm using the word obviously, you don't know what I'm talking about. In a previous life, 2 Venuses together, or even Venus and Mars, indicates Venus is the love planet in the same sign Aquarius, something weird and wacky and unusual. We've got a Venus Mars conjunction, so there was previously a romantic relationship between us, that I was the boy and she was the girl, and there we are, we had a romance. So when she was born, I was really quite I don't know what the word is, I don't know how to describe it. Her birth was very significant for me, and I felt a deep connection with her. And obviously at the time I had absolutely no understanding, or why would I have this strong connection with her, which my other siblings didn't, but I did. So none of the others had that a deep connection like I had with her. And the other thing that we've got is so we've got a Venus thing going on. So Venus is in the same sign, so that shows a deep female friendship. A Venus and Mars thing, so there was some sort of romance going on there. And she also had Saturn in the sign of Pisces, and there I am, a Pisces. So in that lifetime, Saturn is a parenting planet. It's generally male. The sun is the sign of the zodiac or whatever. The sun is a male planet. So in that lifetime we could say astrologically that she was my dad and I was her son. So he's in this case, so we're getting it the right way around. So he's dad and I'm the child, yeah. So now past lives, I must point out, gosh, I've written this in my book, The Astrology Lovers, and I've written about it so much before. Don't start comparing your chart with someone you do not know or have never met, because it doesn't tell you anything. You might be sort of madly in love with someone, or a pop star. I've talked about this before, about somebody who had a big crush on Michael Jackson. She lived in somewhere daft like Denmark, and he was in America, and she was never going to leave the country. She reckoned she was going to marry him. Okay, how's that going to work? If you haven't met the person, then you haven't had a past life with them, and that's it. Okay, so don't start comparing your chart with someone else's who you have not met, because if you haven't met them, you haven't had a past life with them. End of. If you're in a relationship with someone and you have planets that are conjuncting in the same sign, use a little bit of creative imagination about what those connections might be. So what's happens a lot in families is a Pluto moon thing, or even a Pluto sun thing. So Pluto's about deep change and transformation, the moon's about the emotions, the sun is who you are. If you've got someone in your family and you've got a moon Pluto conjunction going on, then you'll have had a past life that is completely imbalanced, because Pluto is an enormously transformative planet, and the sun and the moon are quite fluffy little things. So it can indicate an enormous power. I don't want to use the word struggle, it's not quite, but power imbalance. So in my book, The Astrology of Lovers, How Astrology Can Help You Love Better, I'm using the charts of Elizabeth Barrett Browning and her chappie who she married, Robert Barrett Browning, who was a few years younger than her. And they had a big Pluto Sun thing going on. So there was one previous life that they'd had, which was a total imbalance, and that he had all the power and she was just sort of a minion of his. And in the lifetime that they had the romance, it almost seemed a little like that he had a big well, he did have a big influence over her, because she left her family, she left the country and went and lived with him. And I'm sure she did it out of her own wants. I don't think she was forced into anything, don't get me wrong, but there would have been this previous life where there was this big imbalance. So you have to remember, if you've had a past life with somebody and there's a Pluto thing going on, you do need to recognise in this lifetime you're going to have to really work hard on that. Now, in other members of my family, there's, on my father's side of the family, loads of stuff in Sagittarius, and on my mother's side of the family, it's all in Gemini. So when I did my mother's chart, well, I mean, obviously I know my mother's chart, but my mother had moon in Gemini, and I've got moon in Gemini, and for millions of years I just completely didn't understand until I became a mother myself, and then our relationship completely changed. But her mother, so this is my grandmother, was a sun in Gemini. Is that right? Grandma was sun in Gemini. Let me just double check. I don't want to be telling you stuff that isn't correct. Hold on just a tick. My grandmother was... excuse me a minute while I get the chart up. So grandma was a sun in Gemini, that's right, and I've got moon in Gemini. And my mother had moon in Gemini, so even though she was Aquarius. So there was this sort of Gemini thing going on. So I got on really well with my grandmother, and to say in later life I got on really well with my mum, and I felt a big connection with my grandma. Some people do, and I definitely did. And when I then investigated her chart, I discovered that my grandma had Jupiter in the sign of Pisces at exactly the same degree. The maths on this is just unbelievable. So grandma's Jupiter was 15 degrees and 6 minutes into the sign of Pisces, and my sun sign is 15 degrees and 6 minutes in the sign of Pisces. So what's the chances of that I was born exactly the moment of the degree and minutes to my grandmother's Jupiter? Yeah. So, past life stuff is amazing. So what is the story between Jupiter and the Sun? The Sun, again, is male planet. Jupiter's the teaching, learning planet. So it would mean that in a previous life she was some sort of teacher to me and I was a male student. But actually, in reality, in this lifetime, she did teach me a lot. One of the things that she taught me was how to knit and crochet, and I can still do those things today. In fact, I'm really glad I learned how to, and it was her that taught me. My grandmother also had Mars in Gemini, and I've got Moon in Gemini. So in that lifetime I was female, she was male. There was some sort of mates thing going on there, but she had a whole enormous amount. She had Sun conjunct Neptune and Pluto. Dum 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 dum. So it was a bit of a weird one. So check out your family. So before you start rushing off and checking the romantic relationships that you might want to know about, check the members of your family and go back and do your grandparents. And it makes absolutely no don't worry about birth times for grandparents unless you do know them. It makes things much more accurate, because we don't need to take into account things like ascendants for past lives, just things that are in the same sign. So now I'll just give you a teeny little rundown of the different planets and what they might indicate in a previous life. I'm sure Judy Hall's written about it in one of her books, but anyway. So the sun's a male planet, the moon is a female planet, Mercury is unisex and is the planet of communication. So if there's a conjunction with something like that in your chart, you need to think of Mercury as sort of like a messenger. Remembering, of course, that when you're doing the comparisons between the two things, you're going to have to take into account the signs that they are in. Mercury. So Mars, Venus and Mars, they're two love planets. And Mars is about action, aggression, energy. Venus is about love. And then when we get to things like Jupiter, that's a teaching, learning planet. Yeah, Saturn is a parenting planet. Uranus is the planet of sudden happenings. So sort of, when you talk about past life astrology, Uranus is sort of like the mad professor, something weird and wacky. Neptune is a psychic planet. If you've got a conjunction between that and somebody else's planets, with Neptune conjuncting yours or something, there's going to be a really good psychic connection going on there. And Pluto's about power and transformation. Yeah. So that's a very, very swift run through past lives and how to determine them in your chart. So you have to use a synastry chart. You have to go to astro.com and do that. You need to look at things that are in the same sign. And if you've got two sun signs together, twins, previous life is male friends. So sun to Mars, again, is male. Venus to moon is female. That type of thing, yeah. But use a bit of creative imagination while you're at it. And then you'll get more of an understanding of why you do or don't get on with someone this lifetime round. What might the struggle be? Judy Hall talks about that a lot in Hands Across Time, and she's got lots of strategies and tips and things how to deal with it. In Erin Sullivan's The Astrology of Family Dynamics, that's more on the family side of things and the connections between people's charts. And there definitely is, and I know in my case because my mother did our family tree, when you do your family tree, you will find there's a certain repeating pattern. And in my case, in the English side of the family, so my father's side of the family, Sagittarius just turns up more times than is more time than could be possibly coincidence. Because my dad was Sagittarius and two of my siblings have got moon in Sagittarius, so there we go, just before we even started. But going back further, there was lots of sun sign Sagittarius and bits and bobs in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is my father's theme and Gemini is my mother's family theme. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed that. Next week we are going to be talking about Saturn and pain. And if you've got any queries about anything that I'm discussing today, then do ping me an email. I will answer. I'm not so busy that I can't answer emails. And I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be speaking to you soon. Okay, bye bye now.